we probably have $250 billion in alleged fraud and waste in California.
Speaking of fraud, this week you and State Controller candidate Herb Morgan released preliminary findings of your Califraudia tip line investigation, alleging California could be losing $250 billion in fraud, waste, and abuse. Explain your findings.
So when the Minnesota fraud scandal first emerged around Thanksgiving, I said at the time, I'm very sure that the scale of the fraud here in California is going to be much bigger. It's a much bigger state, obviously, but also we've had one-party rule from Democrats for much longer, and that means you end up with a culture of corruption. There's a lack of checks and balances. And so I set up back then, about a month ago, a tip line for whistleblowers to tell us what they know. It was califraud.com. We've had hundreds of tips come in, which we've been chasing down. On top of that, we've looked at other audits that have happened. The state auditor telling us $24 billion was lost on homelessness spending, $55 billion during the pandemic for the employment department, and so on. We've looked at all of that and all the budgets of the state and looked at the error rate, for example, in payments on food stamps and those kinds of things. And when we look at it, we think that the estimate is at least $250 billion, not all in one year, but in the last few years. And that is
So this is Steve Hilton. He's a Republican candidate for governor in California. He created the Califraud and the Califraudia report, which is basically a website where people can be a whistleblower without nobody knowing. He comes back and he estimates that we probably have $250 billion in alleged fraud and waste in California. Gavin Newsom got to go. People are counting down the days till he gets out of there. He would not be able to be president because once we get a Republican in California and they're going to expose everything with a real audit, his career is toast. It's finished. What they're saying is $24 billion statewide has been spent on homelessness. Homelessness has raised 60%. $55 billion of that money has went to it came from COVID, so it went to the unemployment insurance losses. Money wasted. PPP fraud went out the roof, right? Another thing is that some of this money went to, let's look at the contracting and nonprofits. Big deal, right? Right? Fake student aid applications, homelessness and housing grants. We already talked about that. Medi-Cal, welfare, social safety net programs. And a lot of this money went to undocumented people. See, it didn't go to people like me, regular people in California that really probably at that time maybe needed it. It didn't go to people like me. It went to people that can get their vote. That's what it was. And these nonprofits. California is in the gutter.